In a quiet town in 16th century France, long before electricity, before modern science, before the world understood disease, a man sat alone. The room was dim, only a flickering candle lit the space. Shadows danced along the walls as he leaned over parchment, carefully writing words that centuries later would ignite curiosity, fear, and endless debate. His name was Nostradamus. Some believe he predicted wars, others say he foresaw disasters. And a few claim he even saw the end of the world, but others, they insist it was all coincidence. Clever wording. Nothing more, yet one question has survived for over 400 years. Did Nostradamus truly see the future? Stay with me because what you're about to discover might change how you see history forever. A man before the mystery Nostradamus was born in 1503 in southern France. His real name was Michel de Nostradame. At first glance, there was nothing supernatural about him. He wasn't born a prophet. He wasn't raised in mysticism. He was a man of science. He studied medicine during a time when Europe was being ravaged by one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, the terrifying wave of disease known as the Black Death. This wasn't just illness, this was devastation. Entire towns vanished. Families were wiped out overnight, bodies piled in the streets. Hope became rare. Nostradamus didn't run from it. He walked into it, he treated the sick, he studied symptoms, he tried to understand what no one else could. But here's the truth, even the best doctors at the time were powerless, and that changes a man. The turning point: imagine seeing death every single day, watching people beg for help, and knowing you can't save them. That kind of experience doesn't just affect your career, it reshapes your mind. Some historians believe this is where everything changed for Nostradamus. Because after years of witnessing suffering, he began to search for answers beyond medicine, beyond logic, beyond science. He turned to something controversial, even dangerous at the time: astrology, but not just reading horoscopes. He studied planetary alignments, ancient texts, symbolic language, hidden meanings, and slowly he began to write. The book that changed everything in 1555, Nostradamus published a book. It wasn't a typical book, it didn't explain ideas clearly. It didn't tell stories in a straightforward way. It was called Les Prophéties, and inside were hundreds of short poems. These poems, called quatrains, were unlike anything people had seen before. They were vague, symbolic, cryptic, written in a mix of languages: French, Latin, Greek, even coded phrases. They didn't make immediate sense. In fact, they weren't meant to. Nostradamus claimed these writings described the future, not just events in his lifetime, but moments hundreds, even thousands of years ahead. And that's where the mystery truly begins. The fire that proved him right. One of his most famous lines spoke of destruction. It mentioned a great city, and a devastating fire connected to the year 66 years later. In 1666, the Great Fire of London tore through the city. Flames consumed wooden buildings. The sky turned orange with smoke. Thousands were left homeless. To many people, this wasn't coincidence, it was prophecy. They looked back at Nostradamus' words and saw something chilling. He had written it before it happened, or had he? Skeptics argue the wording was too vague. It didn't clearly say London. Didn't give exact details, but believers, they saw enough, and once people start believing, it's hard to stop. The name that sparked fear. Another quatrain mentioned a strange word: Hister. First it meant nothing, but centuries later a man rose to power, a man whose name would become one of the darkest in human history: Adolf Hitler. Suddenly people connected the dots. Hister, Hitler, was it a coincidence or something more? Historians quickly stepped in. They pointed out something important. Hister was actually an old name for the Danube River, not a person, not a dictator, just a place. But by then the idea had already spread, and once a belief enters the public mind, it rarely disappears completely. The king's death that shocked Europe, perhaps the most famous prediction of all, involves a king. Nostradamus wrote, "The young lion shall overcome the old in a field of combat, he will pierce his eyes." Years later, in France, King Henry II of France entered a jousting match. It was meant to be entertainment, a celebration, but something went terribly wrong. During the match, a lance shattered. A piece of it pierced the king's eye. He died days later. Europe was stunned. And suddenly, Nostradamus was no longer just a writer. He was something else, something feared. Revolution and chaos. Nostradamus also wrote about people rising against rulers, kings being imprisoned, nations collapsing into chaos. Years later, France erupted. The French Revolution changed everything. The monarchy fell. The people took control. Violence spread through the streets. Once again, people looked back, and once again they saw proof. Here, the problem: the human mind is powerful. It searches for patterns. It connects dots, even when those dots don't truly connect. The illusion of prediction. Let's be honest. Not everything Nostradamus is credited for is real. Take the famous claim about the September 11 attacks. You may have seen it before. 2 steel birds will fall from the sky. Sounds convincing, right? There's just one issue. He never wrote that. It's a modern invention. A fake quote spread online, repeated so often it started to feel real. And this is where the mystery becomes complicated. Because Nostradamus' writings are vague, symbolic, open to interpretation, which means something powerful happens. People interpret them after events occur, not before. Science versus belief. Historians and scientists agree on one thing: there is no verified evidence that Nostradamus predicted the future, no controlled proof, no repeatable method. But believers argue something else: too many coincidences exist, too many moments seem too close to ignore, and that creates tension. Between logic and belief, why his words still matter today more than 400 years after his death. Nostradamus is still talked about, still debated, still analyzed. Why? Because humans are drawn to mystery. We want to know what's coming next. We want answers about the future. And when someone, even centuries ago, seems to offer those answers, we listen. The real truth. So what was Nostradamus? Really a prophet, a genius, a skilled writer, or simply a man who understood something deeper, that the unknown is powerful, that mystery captures attention, that ambiguity creates belief? Maybe he didn't predict the future. Maybe he just wrote in a way that allowed the future to fit into his words. Final thought: maybe Nostradamus saw the future. Maybe he didn't, but one thing is certain: his mystery is far from over, because as long as humans wonder what comes next, as long as we search for meaning in chaos, his words will continue to live on. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because the next story might be even more unbelievable.